Okay, everybody. Hey, it's Scott Howard with Earthen Natural Building. This is the third in our series of video podcasts where I interview wonderful friends of mine from the bioarchitecture, natural building, and appropriate technology sphere. And today we are very lucky to have with us special guest Alosha Lynov, calling in from Russia. Welcome, Alosha.
Hey, Scott. Thank you for having me. That's so awesome to be here.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I didn't really anticipate that I would be somebody to have a podcast in the past, but I'm having a great time with it. And I know so many wonderful people like yourself that deserve to be even more famous than you already are. And so this is sort of the process of, we're just putting the word out about all the amazing things that we have conversations about pretty much weekly or monthly. You and I, we've been meeting for quite a while and talking about design and all of your projects and my projects. And I feel like we're making some ground lately, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we indeed are. It's been a great support session especially we started in the pandemic times. But during that time when one couldn't like live anywhere, it was really nice to have you guys to have all of us as a team connect and just was able to brainstorm my concept of this hectic winter home that I'm redesigning an Earthship. So it was good to bounce some ideas with you. So it was, yeah, really good to be part of a group. I'm finding these small groups, and they got to be small, that everybody has a chance to just that intimate connection with friends that eventually become friends. We've never met any of, I haven't met you, Scott. I haven't met any of the other people that you introduced in the group live, but throughout 2 years of conversations, it's become like warm friendships. I'd say I really want to go and visit and stay at those people's homes. So thank you.
I completely agree. It's been a really wonderful experience, and I had no idea that our group, the Inventors Corner, would blossom so much. And it's really just because we picked the right people. It's a very small group, like you said, yourself and Kelly Hart and Teo Briseño, David Mietzak, and I. I mean, it's been really a lot of really fruitful conversations. And so looking forward to more there. And I just want to introduce you a little more for our audience. People may not know who you are yet, although, in my eyes, you've become quite famous. And, I just wanted to say that, before we ever got to meet, several years ago, I found you online and I watched all your videos and I thought, man, this guy is really inspiring and I'd really like to get to know him. And because there's just so much overlap in our interests, and so anyway, thanks a lot for putting yourself out there into the world, and we were able to connect. And so Alosha Lynov, everybody, has been studying for quite some time. He took workshops from all of the most prominent natural building people, biogeometry, sculpture. He's originally comes from wonderful art background, doing amazing decorations for events using spandex and fabric. And he's a designer, an inventor, an educator. He does workshops in person and online, and has a wonderful website. It's called Bio-veda, and just doing a lot of really interesting things. And you're rubbing elbows with all the right people. It was through you that I first became aware of Dan Winter and Michael Rice and all those bioarchitect folks that we're now really integrating with, and it's just so wonderful. So again, thank you, and and just good work out there, and keep it up.
Thanks, Scott. Yeah, my dream has been to create and call it a school, an institute, academy. It doesn't really matter. Like of bioarchitecture and eco technologies, similar to what Mike Reynolds has done, and Carl Earth, and a few other natural builders around the world, like Jeff Lawton, Zeb Holzer, and other permaculturists, but more focusing on bioarchitecture as well as eco technologies, such as the water treatment, the water filtration, but low tech, like with biochar and all DIY, hands on, that people can build with no experience, just watching a couple of videos, having a little PDF, pencil sketch of a layout of this biochar filter, for example, with all the elevations, and being able to replicate it in like a couple of weekends to get 75 gallons of amazing living fresh water from almost like any pond. So yeah, it's been a dream of mine, and I've been on this mission for like 10 years now. Even in 2012, I was already starting to build and I'll get into my presentation, show a couple of pictures, but even then I was already building the school of permaculture, what I was thinking then. But then I ran out of cash completely, and ran back to the city. So I understood, I really tried to get away from money like an ostrich in the sand, and just, stay away from this evil economic model that I perceived as evil before. And let's grow our own food and food forest gardening and these amazing dreams. But when you haven't grown enough food and the cash runs out so you could purchase the food, then the story ends pretty quickly. And we've all learned that lesson sooner or later. Yeah, and on the other hand, it's just changing the perception about the financial model and using it, which I have been, to pump all the money into good education with some of the people I mentioned, equipment such as a concrete mixer, which helps with super adobe. I bought the one that does it's a paddle mixer that does clay as well, which is very cool. A little mention was concrete mixers always try and get a bigger size, because you get one of those little ones from the shop. It depends what you want to do. If it's a little cement slurry, then it's one thing. But if you want to mix hyper adobe, get a big mixer. It's better to get a second-hand big industrial like size mixer, like 300-400 liters, maybe 100-gallon, drum, than getting like a little one from a hardware store, but brand new, because the cogs go, and the thing just wears out, because hyper adobe is very viscous, dry mix that just very heavy. So, and you want to do big loads. That this conversation not about the mixes, but I want to be sharing some tips in between. Scott, do you want to give some questions? Just to keep the
well, yeah, I mean, I totally relate. It's every one of us has tried different sort of like, let's exit the system and see what we can do. And it's like, I did that as well, and it was great fun. I had a farm, and I had chainsaws. It was awesome. I did all kind of tree work and lots of inventions, lots of construction. It was really, really cool for a while. But I think, we all realize at some point, it's like, wow, I could be a lot more effective in the world if we just had a big pot of money, So really, ultimately, we have to fund our dreams and fund our research. And it's okay if you fund it yourself. That's kind of what my conclusion is, just like, if you want something done, just do it yourself, and it's okay if we get money from other people too. But I think it's all going to come together as we've gained so many skills, you and I, both of us, over so many years. Eventually, it all comes to a head, and then we're going to produce even more incredible works and really useful and long-lasting research and inventions. And so, yeah, I see you doing a lot of that stuff. You worked with biogas and and water purification, a lot of permaculture and closed loop cycles like you see in the Earthship systems. It's all such wonderful stuff. And I mean, do you have like a favorite invention of yours that you've worked on?
Scott, I'm plowing all my time into this home. I'm like really rewiring, redefining, not rewiring, but reinventing the Earthship, which is already a challenge on its own. And I'm like, I'm obsessed. I think I'm going mental about how obsessed I am about redoing it. I'm currently drawing a Russian version of it with a roof that, you know, like an onion shape. I'm designing, I'll show it to you now. I'm designing an onion shape, maybe while I'm speaking from Rhino. I'm designing an onion shape. Can you see this?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, just the greenhouse in the shape of a typical Russian roof to bring that, you know, geometry. So just showing that the Earthship doesn't have to be, you know, I'm not finished really. I'm just started on this front greenhouse, but yeah, this is and I'm also I used to have this whole symmetrical look until I did some research into Russian architecture, traditional architecture, and I realized asymmetrical is actually better. So here you can see a 135-degree angle, which is a biogeometrical angle. The insulation, the foam insulation behind will also be at 135-degree angle here. Just creates really good energy, like healing vibrations. Biogeometrist is the Ibrahim Karim, and he's been putting 50 years into this. But basically, I've got like an interesting hyper adobe sauna and acrete block, heavy duty acrete, like it's 2 foot by 1 foot by 1 foot bricks, but sauna, not a flask. A flask with 30,000 liters or 7,500 gallons of salty water behind it. And basically that will be additional mass that will be heated by the pipes. So I'll show you now another image with all the pipe work. And basically what I've done is instead of dumping the heat like Earthships do from the greenhouse, I'm channeling it into the burial, which is behind here. I haven't drawn the insulation, but basically this whole home is buried. And then I've got this black pipe here, which in a double greenhouse has got like a double, you know, an extra piece here of how can I say, here, maybe you can see it on this view. But basically, instead of heating up the greenhouse too much, I've got this second piece of polycarbonate that keeps this part, I don't know if you can see this part, hot where the pipe is, okay? So really, really hot, like, you know, really hot. Not hot enough so it will melt, but hot enough that this black pipe there will heat up and send this hot air passively into this burial. And whilst I'm here, this is the wood chip. Jean Pain developed a wood chipping composting method that heats up to 70 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so basically these are the two features that I'm adding. I'm adding to the Earthship. I'll show you a proper design just now to get into it. But I'm adding the wood chipping from hot compost from Jean Pain, and I'm adding this black pipe with a double, with a second floor here. So the greenhouse will stay cool because the greenhouse gets really hot. You don't want it too hot, you know. But this black pipe, metal, 1 foot diameter pipe, will basically channel that heat into the burial. But I'll get back in. I'll show you a proper drawing because it'll have 2 solar pipes that pull. Because the passive is the key. We don't want our homes to rely on microchips and fans and things like that. That's all fair and well. I mean, sure, you can get a Canadian solar passive home, but that's what $300 a square foot. It's a $300,000, $400,000 home. I mean, the technologies are there. You make a thick polystyrene box around your thing. You have a very expensive heat exchanger, and you are almost there. But at what price and with what footprint, you know? But I'll hand over to you
Yeah.
because,
And
yeah,
like, let's say the power goes out or you live in a remote place. I mean, if everything is powered, then there's way more things that could go wrong with the home. So it's really smart
God,
when
we had electricity. Just talk about power. Sorry to interrupt, but we had electricity go for 5 weeks in December. 5 weeks. It
you had
was
no electricity
minus.
for 5 weeks.
It was not in
Oh,
Moscow, obviously, but we are out here in the village. Yes, you know, out in nature. They don't restore it so fast.
wow.
Basically, it was anomalies in weather. It got really cold, warm, warmish, cold, rain, and then the electrical cable that's supposed to be like this size suddenly had a 4 inch of ice on them, all the cables. And the old and more, and because like some of them are old and all, you know, they just dropped. They just dropped. They froze and collapsed because they're not supposed to carry. I even took a photo. It's this thick of ice.
Yeah, that's ridiculous, which is why, I mean, this could happen all over the world at any time. So we need to start designing our lives and our homes so that they're capable of running off grid, even if we don't on a daily basis. It's much smarter move.
Yeah, and America is easier. A lot of parts of America are quite warm and they switch off your powers like whatever. But if you're talking about when our power went off last December, it was minus 15 Fahrenheit.
Yep.
Chew on that.
That's deadly.
That's deadly.
That
So
is deadly.
thanks God for that Russian mass stove. We
Yeah.
just stoked the fire, and because nothing else was working, there was another thing there that you can send hot water around the home to all the radiator batteries, yeah, radiators, from this boiler, and that thing obviously packed up because it has a little pump that sends the water across all the circuit, you know. So
Right,
so
right.
it was that just solid brick mass heater. And the previous winter, we lived with this typical American, European metal fancy with a glass, and you see the fire romantic thing. That thing is a piece of shit, man. We had two of them running, and two truckloads of firewood delivered. We chewed it up in 2 months. Okay, huge truckload, huge. Like your big thing that delivers sand to the biggest thing that delivers sand. We had two of those, you know, because you have to stoke them all the time. That's you will learn about the small mass. That thing, yeah, it heats up quick and you're warm, but then as soon as you finish stoking it, half an hour later, the house starts to freeze.
Right.
So not right.
Well, it's interesting what you talk about. You know, I actually built a lot of masonry heaters and rocket stoves in my day, and I do believe in that technology. It's got its place. It's such a wonderful potential there to store heat in mass, and you can also use like coppiced sticks, like certain trees. They just keep growing small branches, and you can harvest them every year sustainably without killing the trees. You know, so there are ways where people can heat their homes very sustainably with wood, definitely. But
Yeah.
you know, we need to combine it with some of this other stuff you're talking about. And just for the sake of our audience, I mean, you and I have this like ongoing conversation. We have a pretty big vocabulary now in terms of, you know, the architecture and the appropriate technology. It's like we're just building this language of so many different design features. But for the audience, you know, what Alosha's doing, using the pumping the hot air from the summertime excess heat under the ground, back behind the berm in the building, is storing it in the mass, in an insulated mass for wintertime release. And there's some literature out. There's a guy named John Haidt, and his book is called Passive Annual Heat Storage. I got a lot out of that book, and I actually designed several buildings using that method that worked pretty well. And I've seen a couple other buildings that were built here in the US that worked incredibly well. And not even every building uses the air tubes under the mass to move the air through. Sometimes they just use like an underground umbrella of like a rubberized roofing material that extends out from the base of the building. So this whole idea, the passive annual heat storage concept, there's just so much that we could experiment and discover with this method, and that hasn't even been discovered yet. It hasn't even been tried, and it's very effective. So it's exciting to see you working with that. And then it also kind of reminds me of some of the works of people like um, Jerome Ostentowski from Crimpy, from the Colorado Rocky Mountain Permaculture Institute. And then also people like Anna Eady from the Sol Viva. Anna Eady, I believe she's still around. She's still with us, I think. I talked to her some years ago. She was in her 80s. But
Wow.
the Sol Viva books, man, incredible information there. She did some really valuable experiments with really large scale greenhouses that were also attached to the south side of buildings here in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. And she used like animals, little rabbits and chickens inside the greenhouse to help heat the greenhouse. And she was growing marketable vegetables out of season, you know, in the middle of winter. She's selling like lettuce and tomatoes and all kinds of stuff and getting top dollar for it because it was out of season. So there's just a lot of information out there. You know, there's all these people. We're all standing on the shoulders of giants. You know, there's all these people that have already pioneered this stuff. And the more you look, the more you can find. And like you mentioned, you had studied with Nancy and Jack Todd, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I went to Okavango Delta with them. They actually traveled all over South Africa, but I never found out about that. And then as they were leaving South Africa, I'm like, oh my God, these are like, you know, John Todd. You know, I never knew about Nancy just from the book, but that she writes for John. But John Todd is the living machine expert. So I flew all the way to Okavango Delta. It was quite an experience. I mean, just as an experience itself, I saw we flew on a tiny plane with 4 people that landed on like an island in the delta, and this delta is the biggest wetland in the world. So it was very cool. This hippo tried to turn our boat over, and it was like. Then I was in a tent at night, and I saw something munching, and through mosquito mesh, I saw an elephant head as far as my computer. Huge elephant head, but because I'm on the other side of mosquito mesh, you know, he couldn't see me, obviously felt me, and he was just munching right outside my window. So as an experience of the water, he obviously, you know, showed us the delta and how nature does it on a large scale, what he does it on a small scale, you know. The experience was amazing. He gave us some really good design tips and tricks that we need to use in construction of our living machines. And then that was that connection that I bought a few of his books, started reading. You know, it's always it almost helps to connect with the master, to ask the relevant questions, and to get his like embodied spirit of the subject like imprinted into you. When you're in that close by resonance, like energy moves. And you know, whilst at the workshop, I was sketching lots of these eco machines, the ones that go vertical garden type of style, combining Schauberger vortex things. So lots of drawings sprung out when you're in an environment when a few people join with the same. It's almost like a mastermind group that we've created in our, you know, in our Bioarchitects Inventors group that we all join together and on a monthly basis. So yeah, I'm John Todd is just a part of the puzzle, but what I'd like to get back to is and his systems will definitely be implemented in this Wattilarium. This Wattilarium is the home that I'm developing, which is Wattili, which is based on Nautilus spirus. Nautili, Wattili, there was a W, and waste, such as tires. Yeah, I don't think I'll be using tires for all the walls, but definitely for the foundations. Just a fantastic material. Just people are a bit off, like Nah, especially here in Russia, the wood is so cheap. And like, why would anybody live in a tire wall? You know what I mean? It's like a hell of a lot of convincing. It's a different model to America where, like, I'm just gonna freak you out now. I can buy a house right now with 1 hectare, with 2 acres of food forest. It'll be packed, all these apple trees everywhere, apple trees, plums, maybe a nut tree if you're lucky, and a huge oak tree that's like 500 years old. You can get that land with a home for $2,000.
Can foreigners buy land?
Yes, there are ways, but now it's becoming ever more difficult because American government is causing some trouble with our country. But um, yeah, I mean, I could purchase land if like somebody like you who wants to trust me. I could purchase land and then just write it off to you. Or it could be a partnership, a business partnership to develop some form of a business together, like a school of bioarchitecture or a property development, something, like Mike
Sure.
Reynolds did. So, but I'd like to just get back to the home because that's my obsession. People think that sustainability is the switch that flick and then it just works. And you spoke about Solviva. I read her books also while I was on a tour in America in somebody's library. I don't even remember where, but all very inspiring. What I wanted to share with you, the design difference between a Canadian home, which costs you $400,000, and it's this huge thick insulation, like are insane value, and this expensive equipment to heat exchange. The difference between that, which is more like a flick switch option that you pay when you climb into debt for, and what we are trying to achieve is that many little things make up this comfortable temperature, food on your table, and using permaculture stacking functions. We stack multiple components to produce multiple results, such as the gray water wetland now grows us food. The gray water wetland produces us oxygen. The gray water wetland has geraniums and other nice smelling like mints that tantalize our senses and create a beautiful etheric oil like forgot it, but yeah, natural oils that you can smell. You obviously won't have enough to squeeze it out of there, but or distill it. But it, you know, and at the same time, it creates beauty because when you stack, let's say, in our climate, 6 months of the year is just white, maybe even 7 months of the year, just snow and cold, so you're spending all the time indoors. Suddenly you have this big, and I'm pedaling on a big greenhouse. I find Earthship greenhouses are tiny. I want 2 rows of vegetable beds and shrubs and small trees in there. So the greenhouses I'm designing are 12 feet tall, using an entire sheet of polycarbonate because polycarbonate is much cheaper than going for glass. Sure, it's got a 15-year lifespan, but look, life changes so fast. In 15 years, you might not even be living there. Yeah, polycarbonate does have a lifespan. Obviously, new materials come out, and I'm hoping that will increase the lifespan. But be that as it may, I'm trying to. In Solviva, yeah, her chickens added 1 or 2 degrees extra. Her rabbits added 1 or 2 degrees extra. The compost she gathered from that went into compost that heated up an extra like 5 or 6 degrees. So it's all these little solutions. The sun designing the pitch of your roof to take in the sunlight that in the coldest months of the year. Yeah, so the sunlight comes through. So your roof is not down, your roof is up. You bring in that sunlight so it reaches your back wall, which is made of mass. That's why I can't make my home from aircrete, for example, not that back wall. Like maybe other parts and hempcrete, but not that back wall. That back wall has to be masked. So that sunlight in February, when temperature is minus 20 Fahrenheit, can reach and start heating my wall up. So what I'm trying to say, it's lots of little things that make up the solution and make our structures way more resilient to you know, just like you said, if the electricity goes off, that Canadian home will eventually freeze because, you know, you open doors and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, you know, one of the things I really love over the years designing homes is it's probably the most multidisciplinary thing you can do. You know, if you're designing an eco home that it's off grid and it's trying to sustain the dwellers and process waste and feed you and all these things. It's like you got to be a permaculture gardener and you got to be an architect and you have
Gotta
to
know about earthworm,
yeah
red brick.
yeah and
Yeah,
you
you
need to know
you
about
gotta understand laws of physics, laws of
geopathic stress
thermodynamics.
and yeah
You got to understand the
exactly.
bacteria, the thermophilic bacteria that in Jean Payne's compost in the wood chipping part, that will heat up really hot. I don't know what's in Fahrenheit, 70 degrees Celsius. That's almost boiling, you know,
Right.
for 6 months. For
And
six
we need
months,
to know like systems and electricity. We have to have all that. We're all used to that stuff now. We got our computers. We got to charge our computers, and so I love that because you know everybody in the modern time is taught. Well, we need to be so specialized. You got to be the expert at this one thing. And I never wanted to be that. Ever since I was a kid, I wanted to know. I'm just endlessly curious. I just want to know how everything works, and I like it when it all integrates together. And to me that's really what permaculture is bringing in the indigenous knowledge, all the cultural knowledge from all of humanity around the world and integrating it together and to move into the future with that. And so that it's a really important role that you and I are playing. We're trying to integrate everything right now, and I mean it's a shitstorm out there. It's chaos on the earth, you know. So it's a huge job, but it's just wonderful to see so many people like us that are on this path and trying to make great things happen. So
and before you freak people out, because we did mention a few things that one's got to know to build these kinds of homes. We didn't even mention natural building, by the way, which is the key. So, but
yeah,
very
I didn't say
important.
that, did I? Natural building. Yeah,
Yeah, that's the
natural
shell that's
building.
gonna hold all
Well,
of this stuff together.
let me just say
That's
that
the
now that I'm, fully indoctrinated or educated rather, and I understand bioarchitecture, I feel that bioarchitecture really is the movement that we need to take forward because it's taking all the aspects of the home that we already mentioned, and then on top of that, we're talking about the magnetic aspects and the healing electrical field of the dwelling.
yeah.
And so that's like taking it even one more step. It's taking natural building to me to the ultimate level. And also I see all of these things as being under the umbrella of really what is kind of permaculture or permanent human culture. So what do you think?
Scott, talk about permaculture. I came with these methods from Australia of Jeff Lawton of cardboard and mulch, and I brought those methods to Russia, and I mulched my entire garden. Man, everything died. All my vegetables died because the beds were still cold from winter. And applying something like what works in Australia, in Russia, killed my vegetables because the cardboard and thick insulation like mulch never allowed sunlight to heat my vegetable bed, and
Mm-hmm.
things
Yeah.
not froze, but they got really uncomfortable and sad and also moist and too moist. And because the soil does not get warm, can't dry up, so they started to rot. So I mean, I'm bringing that to the surface to make you understand that there is no such thing as the global model. Like an Earthship has a global model. It's impossible to create a global model because in California, the sunlight in winter is at that angle. You know, I'm just assuming. You know,
Yeah.
but in Russia, my sunlight in December is at 12 degrees above the horizon. Okay, it's almost flat, and I don't have sun for November, December, January. 3 months of the year, it's full cloud cover. I'm sorry.
I
Taos,
couldn't
New
do it, man. I
Mexico,
can't do it.
Taos, New Mexico model of an Earthship ain't going to work here because
Yeah,
for 3 months of the year there is no sun, and there's no sun. It can't charge your vegetables. It can't charge your mass wall, and that's it. You know, so and that's why in my course I've got this recent course which you've attended, the bioarchitecture design and drawing course, like the 2D and 3D. Um, I share the principles of biological design where we got to look at our sun elevations, our height above sea level, like in permaculture, our winds. Maybe if you're in a hot climate, there is a constant wind going from that direction. Let's say it's coming this way. Then I can do a wind scoop that will constantly channel cold air down and exit out of like an opposite door, you know, creating that circulation. If the wind suddenly comes from this direction, but my wind scoop is facing that way, that creates a low pressure zone that now sucks the air out that way. So,
yeah,
you know, these are the
definitely.
kinds of things that I'm talking about. And very important to mention that what Scott and I are doing, well, is making it simple, giving step-by-step instructions as to what goes before the foundation. Like I made a mistake now. I'll be honest in this, I'll show you in this design. I didn't forget because it's when you build alone and it's like there's so many things to think about. And that's why I'm going back to making a model right now. But I forgot to put an insulation from underneath the floor because, you know, you hear Earthships that say, no, we don't need insulation. The ground temperature is really good. In Taos, New Mexico, it's really good. You know, in Russia, the ground temperature is not comfortable good. It's 5 degrees Celsius, just above freezing point, constantly. So it's good in summer to pull that cold air up through the ground and cool your house down. But in winter, when you want to create this nest that will keep you warm, a solar passive home, you will have this bleed. Because our homes are made of mass, the mass will just bleed its warmth. Because of the laws of physics, it will neutralize the temperature between the ground and the wall. So it will be a forever sink. So that's what I think about permaculture. It's really area specific.
What I hear you saying, really, what we're dealing with are living organisms, right? Ourselves, our bodies, and the plants that are our food, and the trees, our shelter. We have to deal with these living organisms. We start with that as the thing that we're trying to promote and protect and encourage. And then from that, we can develop in each climate. It'll be totally different. How can we encourage this a plant guild, or how can we encourage these humans to be healthy and happy inside of this building?
Not to overheat. We're talking about staying warm. But what about summer? The greenhouses can get really hot, and that's why I created this double top part. It was a secondary floor with a
Right.
black pipe in the center, because I don't want that temperature to be in the entire greenhouse, because I want to be able to walk out, gather some vegetables, gather some fruits, some and not be like dripping with sweat in after 10 seconds. And also important to mention, Scott, that it's not just the laws of physics that are different in different parts of the world, like sun angles and so on. Like here, I don't need to have water storage. Anywhere I dig, I've got water here. There's such an abundance of water. I'll dig a hole 3 feet deep here. There'll be water. Sure, it's not drinking water. I'll dig 20 feet deep. And I'll have drinking water as much as I want for as long as I want, and nobody cares how much I take out of here. There's no laws. So do I need to have a 5,000 gallon water storage tank? No. I'll be paying with a 500 gallon storage tank at most, just as a little buffer, for daily consumption. But that water is taken from the ground without feeling guilty. Because you start doing that in Mexico, and they've gone from getting their water, let's say 20 feet deep in 1950s to 4,000 feet deep in 2020,
Ouch.
because they've dropped the water level that low, and they're getting arsenic, and their teeth are going black because they've pierced the lens. There's a clay lens that they pierced through all these aquifer wells, and the arsenic water mixed in with the fresh water, and it's just bad news there. But here, because of the amount of snow we get in winter, it's guilt-free water. There's so much of it, you know. So that's how the water aspect relates to different parts of the world.
Definitely. You know, it seems like what I've been doing for the last 20 years, you know, besides teaching and designing for clients, building little interesting installations out of earth and all this, is I'm just collecting who is doing what in the world. I'm collecting all these ideas, the designs, the materials, and it's like I have this database. I don't think I have it written down, but it's all in here. You know, I have a vocabulary, you know, of what is even possible on Earth. And there obviously different things are possible at different locations, but there are certain technologies right now that I think are just so incredibly promising for the near future. Like, if have you heard of this place called Tamara Solar Eco Village?
Yeah, we're going there together.
Let's
We're
go
planning
there.
a trip. Yeah. No, there's so many, our permaculturists already have traveled there from Russia, and I really want to go because they have an amazing part of the village all developed with the sun technology, like incredible solar technology. So we have to. So let's plan a trip and go there. I would love that.
I would love that.
And I'm just also rethinking the whole thing of, we all dream that we got to get the land, we got to get our food forest, and then we're going to be happy. I'm sorry, but that is a lie that I'm busy crushing for myself, because I've been dreaming of leaving the city all my life. Like, city's bad, let's get out of there. Let's go into nature. And sure, nature is amazing, but in nature, you have no community unless you build a community, which takes time. And with 90% failure rate of the eco villages, you'll think twice about building your own community. And 30 years later, you might be left alone on the land. So we've got to get community, and we've got to have that traveling experience. So we're starting to think that maybe living at 4 different places or 3 different places throughout the year, and throughout the season. Like, I also, like you said, I can't take this 3 months of no sun. I also can't take. Well, why can't we go to Portugal in that time and enjoy, because their winters are mild, and enjoy a sunny winter with other like-minded friends? I just wanted to bring that other perspective for you, because like, you've also had that experience of, it's my second try on the land. In 2010, I also left the land, and as I said, I went bankrupt and never had the community there, and I ran back to the city. And now I left, relocated to a new continent, which was really, really hard. Left everything behind. I had 20 geodesic domes, outback solar system, like 40 years worth of gatherings. I left it all in my mom's garage, given everything, all my domes away to a permaculture school, and came here with 2 suitcases, like, okay, 5 suitcases, but over time, that's it. And then I moved onto the land, and I'm like, now I'm gonna be happy. And I'm like, shit, where are the people? There are no people. And it's like most amazing nature. The trees are here, the forest, the birds are singing, but there's no community, and community is vital, Scott. And people should not underestimate the importance. People are going to get a big shock leaving the city, let me tell you, because what's keeping us there is not just the economic part.
I agree. You know, we're such social beings, and like, if you really study the the electric field of the human being, it's like we get charged from one another also. And so we need a lot of social contact because it actually replenishes uh, our ability to, heal ourselves on an ongoing basis, internally, our cells, to reform cells. And all this depends on the electrical charge of our biofield, which gets recharged when we are around groups of people also. And so, yeah, I experienced a lot of isolation also when I had my piece of land, and it was just not healthy, and also I just missed my friends. And I remember that my original vision, we should go into this because each of us have like an original vision. Like, why did we get into natural building? Like for me, it was, I came out of college and I had studied cultural anthropology, and I was just so interested in like the mystical traditions of so many cultures, so many magical things described by so many different people across the world. And I wanted to just travel around the world and just see what was going on, see what people were up to. and
Mm.
uh and I decided, well, natural building to me seemed like a just kind of a no-brainer solution, like a really obvious solution that the world needs. And so I went into that like full force, like right out of college, when I was
Wow.
before I left, even when I was like 19, 20, I was just building cob buildings, all the time. And it's really wonderful to do that. And I learned basically that I didn't need to own my own land necessarily. For a long time, I traveled, from country to country, and I made friends at different workshops I was teaching or participating in. And it was like there's this ongoing, like, dynamic global community of people that are creating positive change. And just being a part of that, it just changed my life completely and forever. Even though, now I haven't traveled as much recently, but I plan to again. But for
Yeah.
yourself, like, what was your initial inspiration? Like, what did you study before you got into natural building and biogeometry and bioarchitecture?
Well, maybe I should share a little bit of my screen because it's a little bit of my history there, if it's
Please.
okay with.
Yeah, I think everybody would like to see that.
So, um, so basically, when I left college, when I left school, my mom said to me, "Son, it's time to get a job." I'm like, I went to work for one day um, in the clothing store. I hated it, and then I came home and I'm like, no, I can't do this. And thankfully, she didn't push me towards a path of a job. So I started playing with toothpicks and polystyrene balls and making little decorations for transport for started like, yeah, little trans parties and then clubs, and then I moved into corporate events. What you're seeing here is 3 4 years later. This is a 16 years. It's turned into a 16-year business of stretch, spandex, sculpture, yeah, curvilinear sculptures on all scale, from
That
small
looks
to
like
large.
so much fun, I gotta say.
Yeah, it was great. It was great. I had like 20 people in my company. It was stressful at times, but I did have a lot of fun, which I'm wanting to get back into, and then slowly, not get back into the decor business, but get back into that type of fun, like a kid playing. Because things just got a little more serious lately, and I want to play more. But anyway, yeah. Then I suddenly then I realized that I'd like to um, take these curves, okay, and I started drawing them on paper using sacred geometry, and I'll get back to some of these designs. But what really transitioned me is that's a food growing machine, by the way, on the left, and that's a trailer design for RVs that does all water and has a shower using IBC 250 gallon tanks. But what really transitioned me is taking these curves, okay, and making them more solid, because stretch fabric has a lifespan in the sun very short. So I thought, well, what if what if we um, yeah, what if we go and solidify the fabric? And I tried to solidify it um, with like a natural resin and plaster Paris type of mix. And I got it really hard. And then I found out about this workshop of ferrocement. So this bottom right picture is me in Mexico learning from Steve Kochler, which is a wizard. I believe you also met him and chatted with him. Yeah, that's his structure that he built. It's called Timolandia. Timolandia. Yeah, just Google that. And his website is flyingconcrete.com. So I came back after his workshop and I'm like, okay, so it's rebar and mesh. Let's try. So I made a little booth for washing machine, and then I made a ferrocement water tank. And then I made the seashell straight, like this stuff works. So I went, well, how complex can we go? And no engineering calculations, nothing of that. It's just pillars, like he said to me, pillars every 3 meters, concrete pillars with obviously reinforcements in them, a mesh and rebar and chicken wire underneath and chicken wire on top. And catenary shapes. Catenary shapes is the key. These are the shapes that keep this geometry strong. Yeah, very strong. So I said, okay, pillars every 9 feet. I got that, and I made myself a 33-foot by 18-foot seashell, and it stood. It was 4 inches thick, ridiculously strong. And then I moved onto the land, and I started experimenting with like Earthship. I haven't met Mike Reynolds at the time, but I read his books and I started playing with, wetlands here. So I made this super adobe structure, which folded because I thought, now let me not use cement. I'll go all natural. Yes, you can if you have sandy soil and it's waterproof structure, But if you have clay, that thing folds like dough. So 5 rows up, when the rain came, it was really hard before that, and these bags just folded like this and fell down. I'm like, oh my God, I had to pull all of that out. And it's a lot of work. This is 18 foot wide, So yeah, and then I did this mandala garden around it with like sacred geometrical five, a geodesic dome has a pentagon on top. So I have these 5 pathways going out and then concentric circles. And then I learned my other lesson that you can't have a sacred geometrical mandala garden on a slope. A slope requires things that's called contour lines and berms and swales on contour lines. So my bottom beds, if you can see my finger, caught the water, and my top beds, that is concentric circles, diverted the water and they dried up. So anyway, so those are hard realizations. And then I was getting ready for 2012, and here I'm sinking a geodesic sphere, which I ferrocemented, was a dream catcher strung out of rope, so me, myself, and my family could sit and protect ourselves should the earth start to move, in waves. Like we were all thinking, what the hell would happen in 2012? And in the background, you see another super adobe little dome I did. And then I went to Carl Earth and Earthships in one trip to America, and then I came back and I built this structure on the same land. So that's already starting to weave the domes together using the little clay patty reptile finish of Nadir Khalili. Here's a shower on the top right,
So
5 showers.
that's in South Africa?
Yeah, that's in South Africa.
Okay,
So
yeah.
that's the domes. I brought in Pacific Domes expert to South Africa. That cost a lot of money, and he taught us how to make these domes really well. Their style, Pacific Domes are really good at geodesics. So I bought my own press that was banging these domes out in an hour. The metal frame. So that's a shower that was heated by water. So all was working well. So I was building this school of permaculture for like already 10 years back. That's in Malawi. That's myself and Mike Reynolds. We were building a school there and a bank. As strange as it sounds, like a flower petal, and one of the rooms was a bank. But that's what the community needed, so can't get anal about it. That's in Cal Earth, learning about the arch and the strength of, this brick arch doesn't even have mortar in between. It It's just bricks and little pieces of stone that's keeping them. So Carl Earth was a really good experience. What Nigel Khalili's done there. Yeah, and then basically going back to that structure I was showing, that's it's finished. I tried like little pieces for the. I did stupid mistake, like this half moon shape is for a tree because the wetland is wet, yeah, so the tree doesn't need so much water. So I experimented with like flow forms and made a little fireplace out of one of these fifth one of the places where the tree's supposed to go. Made a fireplace, yeah. And then started playing around with plumbing. I was so dumb at time, so not dumb, but like, yeah, I didn't even know I used very expensive brass fittings for plumbing gray water. I didn't know about like other ways of like the black plastic fittings. They're much cheaper than the brass
That's how
ones.
we learn, though. We learn by doing. I mean, it's fine because you got to just get out there and just try stuff, and then the richness of your experiential learning is invaluable. It's way better than book learning. You actually did it, and yeah, that's how I learn as well. You got to make some mistakes along the way. It's just fine.
Yeah, and I think designing and building is very important because one can get into the theoretic land of La La Land and start drawing and drawing and never get out of drawing. But going and building on the land, even if it's a small structure and making mistakes, is really good. Makes you refine your design. So that's a Russian masonry stove with a little bed, like your rocket stove bed. So starting to play with curves. So these curves I took from my fabric days. It's all were able to be achieved with Super Adobe. Super Adobe is the material that allows us to do that. You can't. I mean, you can do it with bricks, but Super Adobe is really easy. You use a pick to draw a curve, an act like a pick, yeah, a garden pick. So yeah, so these are some of the earlier models before I went to the Earthships. So combining like the drawing, Cal Earth. And then I came back and I thought, okay, well, I went to Dom Guy and did the Aircrete workshop, and with students, we constructed this Aircrete dome and a sandbag dome in one workshop, and this little garden bed, which was really cool, a wicking bed. So had big windows. I made custom windows, very expensive. I left it all to the bank. The bank just sold my home and wanting me to pay them the money, but it's ridiculous, So I left South Africa. They can,
It's an
I'm not interested.
experiment. It was just an
Yeah,
experiment. Yes.
that's in Nepal. That's also, so just like you travel around the world. So I ran multiple workshops, and that's in Nepal. So we leave it like this for the client, and then the client finishes it up. That's in Ghana. Yeah.
Oh, Ghana?
Yeah. It's
Oh,
in
yeah.
Ghana.
Oh, yeah, I've been there. That's a great place. Such nice folks.
Yeah. So that's more for American mild climates. So that's greenhouses
Sure.
next to old.
So,
There's
I have questions about, like, in general, do you feel like most of your designs are pretty centered around like the Earthship model inspired by Earthship?
Right now there are because Earthships have provided us some very stable foundations in methodologies that they use, which is sunlight heating up mass, plants treating gray water, and that grows us food and produces air. Those key concepts, and of course, a full sustainability was electrical, but I don't need that here. I don't need the water or the electrical because electricity is dirt cheap here, and water, as I said, is from the ground. But things like things like a home, otherwise you just burn so much firewood. So the main thing I'm concerned about is our forests. I really want to produce a home that uses very little wood in construction, maybe just a little few shelves, but and uses no wood in its heating, or no gas, no wood in its heating. So especially now the price of wood and gas are going up because of all the sanctions on our country. Yeah, and imagine one winter can bleed all your resources out because you just it's going to get that expensive. Like in Europe, It's gone from something like 500 euros a month to 5,000 euros a month to heat, and they haven't even reached the winter yet. So anyway, so it's just gonna keep on going up, and and as the resources become less and less available, we've got to turn to nature for answers. And when we turn to nature for answers, we've got to know the angles of our sun, how much sunlight. So I'm focusing on the heating aspect, but as well as the cooling aspect. But heating aspect is the predominant one because we can die. Yeah. So basically, it's a much bigger mass than an Earthship. Okay. And I'm taking the heat from the top of the greenhouse. It's not shown here, but it's basically, it takes it up through the berm, and the berm has the insulation. And insulation, like Earthships use EPDM liner, which is very expensive. I suggest, like the book you mentioned, Solar Passive Home by who? I forgot. John Haidt. Yeah, he mentions that using 3 layers of foundation plastic is way cheaper than like EPDM liner, and I want to try that. So it's 3 layers, so layer, then insulation, layer, then insulation, and then another layer. So even if one layer gets pierced by a mistake or something, you know, you still got 3 layers. And of course, a large skirt that goes forward and down that stops the heat from going underneath. So models are very good a way to, like, using this model, I realized that, you see how this beautiful design of these sandbags on top, I realized by doing the model that stuff is not going to work. It's all started falling in because sandbags can't hang on 10% of their surface area. You know what I mean? So,
I do.
so you realize that, okay, then the top 3 feet of the structure have to be something else, like a little maybe vault, like a brick, like a Nubian vaults that you build. It's got to be something else. It can't be bags. So the bags also have their limitations. So designs just started flying out of me. Like, really, there's no problem with design. So, you know, paper, then take it to 3D, which I actually have a course. I teach how to do this drawings. I've got a course coming up on 24th of September. Actually, every season except summer, I'll do this course. So 3 times a year. So if anybody wanting to learn how to draw simple homes that you can build and afford to build, then this course is really great. Because
let me just add, you know, I took your course because I was really enthusiastic. I really like the program that you're using, Rhino and Rhino Vault. There's just so many possibilities with that program, and it was a really cool course. I learned a lot. I mean, I'm still just kind of slogging through Rhino. I haven't spent much time on it, but I got a lot out of the course, and I just want to encourage people to sign up for that drawing course because it was wonderful. It was a good experience, and it was really cool for me just to, like, you know, be the student again and like sit in the back and just, you know, watch you teaching and kind of see how you ran an online workshop. Also, was very interesting for me.
Yeah, I find online workshops need to be supported with live sessions, because if you give people just a whole bunch of videos and expect them to watch it, it doesn't happen. But if you, so like every Saturday, I sit with folk for like 2 hours and we go through. And even if it's not Saturday, somebody got stuck yesterday, and I called them immediately, and we had a 40-minute call with just one student and explained to them how to get through. So yeah, so it's supported with live sessions. But eventually this type of thing gets drawn in Rhino with precise sizes. So there's on the bottom left, you know, you do all your pegs, like, you know, everything, all the sizes from center to the, you know, and then it gets transferred onto the land, and then the reality gets hit, you know. You dig that into the foundations, you start pounding tires, the flies are biting you, the mosquitoes are biting you. Yeah, so myself and my wife, she was helping me at a time, which is really great. You gotta have another person. I got demotivated building this thing because I eventually got a loan, and I tried finding labor. Labor obviously don't care. So that's, you know, you spoke earlier about money. Money has its limitations in a way, because sure, you can get a labor, but he wouldn't care about your project. And, you know, one's got a balance, maybe one laborer and maybe a couple of volunteers that came there for the passion of bioarchitecture, and then, you know, and then then it's three of us and one laborer, and then together, four of us, we pick up the team and like have that inspiration, and even the laborer becomes inspired by this thing. But when it's just you and the laborer, let's say, has just had a drinking experience, heavy drinking experience, that and because you're building with hyper adobe, you're quite close, we're working very close together, like his head is like almost next to my shoulder, you know what I mean? You're building together. And so yeah, laborers have their own downfalls, and then my laborer just never rocked up. I paid him the money, he got so drunk for a week, he never rocked up, and that got demotivating, But yeah, so these are some of the challenges I had in building. So that's where I'm left currently with this prototype. Top left picture. Aircrete Harry suggested me an amazing idea. What if I blow up a plastic tube, okay, mounted with mesh, the fabric mesh that they use for plastering. You know that one that got little squares, the white one, yeah? Or they come in different colors, but you mount it. So this little snake design here is a foundation that this tube, plastic tube, it's heavy, 200 micron, so it's quite strong, gets connected to that, blown up with like a bungee jumping fan, like a strong fan, or even the leaf blower, yeah, and basically connected with mesh, and then you gunite it. You spray cement and sand slurry in thin layer, and then over that mesh and over that sleeve, and then you basically start creating your own channels, which is great, because how else can you move hot air? I'm trying to find ways to create our own channels that can take the heat of the mass heater, so the fire, literally like ridiculously hot air, and be able to move the air from the greenhouse. So why the fire? Because I do want to have a backup stove, but I want to make a stove that heats an entire floor mass, like 30 tons. Let's say, I don't know, what is in gallons, or a lot, okay, 30 cubic meters of soil heats up. So the fire goes through and heats up so much mass that you have to stoke your fire every 30 days. The thing to research is called Ondol floor, ONDOL floor, South Korea. So check how they do those floors. They heat up thick mass, like maybe 20, 30 inches of mass, and then that obviously goes far. You stoke, that's. And the beauty about the stoves, you throw in whole logs in. You don't have to chop firewood. So anyway, that's something there. But I'll get back to that.
Well, you know me, and I love your enthusiasm. I love your designs. But I've spent my whole career avoiding using cement as much as possible to show that you don't really need that much cement to build. And most of the things that you're achieving with cement is more just a shortcut of something that you could do with a little more skills, using like a fired brick maybe, and or an adobe brick, or maybe just stone masonry. So those ondol floors, I believe those are made with like
flagstone and clay bricks.
Yeah.
Scott, it's a very valid point. You got to work with what you have at the time. If I start looking into Scott, it's like, for our research, we've got to connect together. We've got to have 2, 3, 4, 5 people, so somebody can do that extensive research into bricks. Maybe we build our own fire kiln that can fire some thin bricks, because we want to use thin tiles almost. So it's like I use what I know, and I do well. I am getting into bricks, and I'll show you
if I have a need for something more ferro cement, I've done a lot of ferro cement as well, so I understand it really works well. It's so simple. We have issues with the geopathic stress that we can get into later. Maybe substituting the steel mesh for like a basalt roving mesh, we can get around these issues. But if I needed to ask somebody questions about doing some ferro cement or doing some aircrete, I would go straight to you and Aircrete Harry, of course.
And by the way, the channel that I was talking about, there is half an inch of cement. Literally, we're not talking about cementing a whole floor. We're talking about cementing a channel that's this size, 20 centimeters. What is that in inches? Like 8 inches diameter. You know, like a little arch. And then that's got that textile mesh, and then it's got half an inch of cement and sand. So we just for that super strength, because I'm using a granite spray on tool which I just bought. So you know that channel will take me a day to construct.
Yes,
Okay,
really
doing
fast
it with
and really
doing
cheap.
it with
Super
yeah, doing it
affordable.
with
Yeah.
yeah, and doing it with bricks. I love the idea. Sounds so romantic, fantastic. But A, I don't know, I don't have experience with bricks like you do, and B, it will take me probably 2 weeks, or you know, and when you're in a short building season, which starts in May when the ground ices down, de-ices, so you can hit your spade in the ground, because before that the spade bounces off the ground because it's ice. And then at the end of middle of October, it's ice again, you know, and you gotta like, and you're alone on the land and doing all these things. You gotta think twice about some, you know, cut corners. But yes, I'm getting into bricks. So here is in Brazil, we built recently in November a home based on also sacred geometry and a little spiral shower, lots of hyper adobe, some an acrid dome, and ferrocemental roof. And here I'm getting back to the structure. So basically, in essence, it's got two solar tubes, which behind is like a mirror, in front of the polycarbonate, and in the middle is this metal tube of 1 foot diameter, 18 feet long, 6 meter long, and that will create a draft. And basically, the hot air from the greenhouses we're pulling through this tube down into a blue barrel, like a 50-gallon barrel, that distributes it through the black pipes, wraps around the septic, goes underneath the sauna. Here is a little fan, like an earthworm here, maybe you can see. Here that fan kicks in to push that air through the burial. This is all buried. And then the solar pipes kick in, you know, they take that hot air and then start pulling it, and then you switch off the fan. And then so you use the fan just to kickstart the system to take the, you know, to get the hot air going, to get the draft suction going. Then it's game. So these are the channels behind that I'm trying to figure out, that I was explaining, because doing this from the black underground pipe is dangerous, because not dangerous, but it air moves up. Okay. And you're going to be burying this with an excavator, okay, because this is just too much to do by hand. Okay, this is like an excavator will come for the day and he'll just cover your whole house. So you want these channels strong. You know, maybe we don't need so many of them, and they don't need to be so complex. Yes, we'll simplify them, but they need to be strong, and they need to not be able to go down. You know what I mean? Because hot air likes to just go up and up slowly, even if it's in a slight angle, but it likes to go up. You know what I mean? It doesn't go down. And these are the two typical Earthship cooling tubes in the insulation. The pink is the insulation. So the burial will stop here, and basically allows the hot burial not to heat up the cooling tubes. These are the tubes that are coming and actually cooling down the house. So there's a heat exchange. Everything is DIY and hands-on. So even the heat exchangers are the two pipes like coils. So the fresh air leaving, a fresh, stale, warmish air leaving, and cold, warmed up air by the ground is entering in, and they're spiraling together. So the one is preheating the other. So that's from the Canadian expensive system. That's a DIY system that I'm planning to create. So there's a lot of R&D going into this. So that's the air movement system, just separated. Here, the insulation, you can see that stops the heat from escaping, and then the burial, a little gutter that you have to put behind, so any water that collects there drains out. So there are lots of things to think about. That's the sauna. That's the water around it, the hot water. Originally, it was going to be compost here, the hot compost. And I thought, why the hell build this expensive structure to house compost? And that's why I moved it to the back now.
Yeah, I think that's a good decision. I mean,
Yeah,
it all makes sense to me now that I've been looking at your Wattalarium for some months, and it definitely makes sense, and I imagine it working in my head, and I can see that this is going to be very interesting when you get one of these all the way built. I think we're going to refine it, and it will work.
it will work. So here's a mesh around with other black pipes. So the black pipe will be on a mesh. So it'll be easy. So yeah. So it's basically that's the heat exchanger. So you get that hot water. So this hot water is like a giant flask. The hot water that will now send water to radiators if you want to shower. You're not using this water to shower. You're using the water that's going through the pipes to shower. So it's very complex. The earthworms are here. The compost is thrown underneath your floor in the greenhouse. Now, what do you do if it doesn't stink? You have to create a negative pressure. So you have a pipe that sucks air there, like a drainage pipe that sucks air, that all the smell that pulls down, and it aerates the composting. That's another compost. That's the earthworm composter. So there are a lot of complex parts, and I'm making it simple. I'm trying to, and that's why my Wattalarium pre-order. I have another course where I'm actually teaching how to build this thing. It's going very slow. That's why I made it a pre-order, because it's there's so many things to think about. So I'm going back to a model now, 1 to 10 scale, 1 to 10, and I'm going to figure everything out in the model. I'm going to teach it all from a model before I go out and actually build it in real size. And plus building it, sponsoring it yourself is like, and I've been sponsoring all my projects myself. It just drains you financially. Imagine building a home constantly for like, most of your life. You're just building different homes, experimenting.
Oh, I know, believe me. So a little bit about, my history with like Earthship and everything. And for a long time, I knew who they were. I knew who Mike Reynolds was. I loved the documentary Garbage Warrior. I get the idea. I'd already been designing and building ecological homes for, more than a decade by the time I heard of him. And this is quite some time ago. And then I decided, well, hey, Earthship is really famous. They're just famous, and their designs are obviously effective enough, and they managed to get it through the building code. So why don't I just go and study with them and just see what they're all about? So one year, this must have been, I don't know, maybe this was like 2012, somewhere in there. A good friend of mine, Josh, and we'd done some building projects together. He'd helped me in workshops, and we'd done a lot of stuff together. Good friends. We decided to go out to New Mexico and take their, it's like an internship. It's like several months long. So
several months.
Yeah, it was several months studying there with them, and so there was a few hiccups along the way. I didn't really jive with the way that they ran the workshop, and some of the information that they were disseminating about earthen building and earthen plasters was just straight up wrong. So that was a little odd. And I tried to say, excuse me, that's wrong. They didn't like that at all. But suffice to say, by the end of the workshop, I learned a lot about those systems, like what you're talking about. We're dealing with closed loop cycles, with the gray water greenhouse and the black water greenhouse. There's many ways to process the waste, and then dealing with the water organizing module and the power organizing module. It all makes sense. They've already tested it. They've done a lot of R&D, and it's a great like launching platform for whatever it is we want to do with that. We can take it and run in any direction with what they've already done. And also in terms of the shape of the structure, I think they are doing a few things that work really well. My favorite building was actually the Phoenix, like you're saying, because the greenhouse was so big. They had so many animals in there. There were like lizards and owls, and it was a crazy ecosystem there in the middle of the super dry desert. It was a wonderful, wonderful building. And so I learned a lot of things, and immediately following that workshop, it was like the next year, I felt absolutely compelled. And that's when I designed the regenerative home, which is, this project. It's basically like my response to the Earthship, because I decided to redesign the structural aspect of the Earthship using mostly earthen materials, adobe materials, instead of, tires and bottles and so on, and cement.
Mm.
So that's how the regenerative home project came about. And I fundraised. I do, like a Kickstarter type thing, and I fundraised, and I had several workshops, and we built this thing right there in southern Colorado, which isn't that far from where they are in New Mexico. And here, let me just put up a photo of it so people can see. I have one in my virtual background selections here. Here we go. So yeah, this is the regenerative home right here.
Nice. Yeah, it's very similar shape to what where I'm going to right now. It's an egg shape from the top, and it's a vault from the front.
Yeah, it's just form follows function, and the engineering was pretty straightforward for me, after having done a number of these Nubian vaults that I learned from the Adobe Alliance people way back in the day, many years earlier. Most of this vault is Adobe brick. And then we just built this little bit of the very tip of the brim and kind of united the entire roof structure using ferro cement. So very small amount of cement. We're talking like maybe an inch thick over lath, covering the exterior and waterproofing it.
That's amazing. Yeah. I'm there with using clay bricks for the roof. In fact, later in my presentation, I show where we're going with this. But I think we should leave it for another time. I will just show this picture, but we're already an hour, 20 minutes. And I think we should actually split our talk into two. What do you think of that?
Oh, anytime we can do this again. I realize we should keep it short so people will watch the whole thing.
Yeah. This is where I'm going with it.
I wanted to touch on. You're already showing the images. Some of the things that you shared with us in that workshop that I took with you, they really kind of like rekindled like the inspiration for me. It was like this thin shell vault construction, especially using the Rhino vault design software, talking about like Philip Block and John Oschendorf from MIT.
And Gustavino here on the bottom right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And we're going to talk about all of that in our next call.
Okay.
Because where I'm going with this is to unite augmented reality with bricklaying, okay? So you can see where to put every single brick of these, because to build these complex structures, you have to be a master. These masters, some of these are like 30, 40-year experience, like in Mexico and stuff. But what if we give this augmented reality glasses to our youth, to teenagers, and they can put the first layer of brick with a fast setting mortar? Then we don't need to use any formwork, because formwork for, that's where we are right now. Formwork for the pictures from Carlos to design these 4 rooms. Yeah, this is one of the recent Porcellarums. But we want to move away from mesh, cement, all of that. We want to move away from it. Scott, I'm in full agreement with you. And if we do that, we have to keep our structures strong, because they're going to be buried by 3 feet of earth. Okay. And this is strength. Look at that. That's 5 tons, 5,000 kilograms of sand pushing on a downward valley of your structure. It's not even a dome part. It's the downward valley. That's insane strength. That's the proof in the pudding. It's like the concrete truck full of cement driving over Earthship tires, a row of tires, and not even denting. When you see that, you understand that, but combining technology, because kids love augmented reality, VR. Why do we have to have our education boring? So let's combine building methods with augmented reality. It's already being done. Hologram. Check out Hologram software.
Yeah. Well, you told me about this some months ago, and I got to admit, I actually got the app already on my phone. I have it on my iPhone, and I've been playing around with the app, and it is just so cool. The Hologram augmented reality, you can see quite clearly this will change specific areas of construction dramatically. And we can use it now that we can combine it with Rhino. So you can invent something in Rhino and we could build it together with the glasses on and use that Rhino file. It's amazing.
Yeah, you can actually you actually stand in the glasses and you program it in. So it's basically hyper adobe walls or cob walls, okay, and then you create a little bit of a beam construction, maybe a little cement beam, yeah, or maybe you have a method that the bricks get stacked on that, and now you're seeing the bricks. You're actually seeing every brick where it needs to go, and you place them using your glasses, in rows, obviously. It was a fast setting gypsum type of mix. But Scott, let's leave it for now because we are going to share some awesome stuff about the recent developments where we're going in the next call.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to the next one, and just thanks again for meeting with me and just being a friend and a colleague and a co-designer, co-creative. Is there anything you'd like to leave with the audience? Like, what's your message at this time to the world? Can you sum it up for us?
I think as much as people don't want to hear about it, it's inner work. Healing our childhood traumas so we don't have any stumbling blocks to be the best we can be. Because when there's stuff from the past that hinders us, the baggage, it can really put some spanner in the works, some spokes in the wheel. I think it's one of the most important things that people are overlooking. All of these things are great, but like what we spoke of, but without inner work, families collapse, people turn to drugs and alcohol on a regular basis, and tobacco, and I just see a whole bunch of single men and women that are talking great things, but everybody's alone. So I think we need to look at strong families, and in order to have a strong family, one needs to do inner work. So to stay centered, I'm talking about particularly feeling in the throat chakra and the heart chakra, is that that burning sensation. When we have that nice and calm, when we just feel maybe you never felt that, I don't know, but it's really for me it's been the biggest challenge, is to feel that centered knowingness of where I'm going and that I'm on the right path. Because you said all these great things about me, and that's fantastic, but if I don't feel that about me, for example, and at times I don't, then like low self-worth and all of that shit comes up. I'm sorry to say it, but it really is important work to do some deep inner healing, and that's what I want to leave.
Amen. Well said.
Nothing to do with natural building, but
it has everything to do with it, though, and I appreciate that you always bring it back to the inner work, and that was one of the things that really stood out for me when I first met you. I noticed that about you. You mentioned that, and it's really important to acknowledge. And everyone has a hard time sometime in their life. It's not everything is always just gravy. So it's good to acknowledge that basically our health, our physical health even, is
and emotional health.
Yeah, our physical health is intimately tied to our emotional health and all around within our whole being. So I think we're getting there. We're encouraging one another, and we're on the same team. So that's golden.
Yeah, check out my wife developed a little course on that. If you want to have a look, consciousness integration, check out on my website, just read up on it. And if you feel the calling towards it, it's she developed something that took her out of full alcoholic to a person that's thriving and quite happy in her life. Yeah,
amazing. Zoya, right?
Zoya,
yeah, everyone loves a beautiful transformation story. It's really just the hero's journey is what it is.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you again. Thanks, Alosha.
Send me the recording.
I will. Many blessings, my friend.
Bye.
See you soon.